Today I want to go over some ideas in regard to string muting, and more in the context of lead guitar playing as opposed to rhythm. String muting was a game changer for me. I learned it from guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and by learning how to string mute when you're playing lead guitar, you can play with a lot more freedom and a lot more aggression, and you can get a lot of bark out of your guitar sound. And adding these kind of subtle dynamic things or nuances will really add another level to your playing. And especially these days where everything's so polished and everyone's playing picture perfectly and making sure every note is played in the most efficient manner possible, playing with some aggression and a bit of bark is it's really refreshing. Let me show you what I mean. So if I play a straightforward pentatonic line with none of the string muting involved, right, nothing wrong with it, nothing offensive, but it doesn't really have any bark or dynamic. Now if I play with a bit more aggression and adding in my string muting, you'll notice it adds a bit more character to my playing. So what is the overall idea with adding this string muting into your lead guitar playing? It basically allows you to play every string on the guitar while only hearing one note. And this means you can really dig in with your picking hand and you get that string rake kind of sound. Again, this is something I kind of picked up from Stevie Ray Vaughan. And again, it just gives you so much freedom because you don't have to be so meticulous about picking the wrong string. You can just play every string and it sounds cool. So let's go over how you can practice this and add it to your playing. So what we're going to do to start off is we're going to take the 5th fret on the low E string and we're going to practice strumming the whole guitar but only hearing that one note. And it would sound something like this. Right, you can hear I'm playing every string, but only that one note is ringing. If I were to pick each string individually, this note would be ringing, and then everything else is muted like that. So how do we do this? You'll notice my first finger is very flat, and you can see by the dent on my finger where I'm pushing down on the note. It's more in like the pad of my finger as opposed to the fingertip. Okay, so I've got my pad of the finger down, I'm blocking with this, and I'm blocking all those other strings. Okay, if I use my fingertip like this, it's going to sound really bad. Now, if you're struggling to do this, what you're going to want to check is your wrist angle. You'll notice I have a collapsed wrist. If I have my wrist up like this, it's going to be really hard to have my finger flat enough to be blocking all those strings above the low E string. Okay, so experiment with that. Just play the 5th fret on the low E with your first finger. Try have that finger flat so you're blocking all those other strings. Go through and pick them individually to double check. Then this one should be ringing. So that's how you block the strings above the string you're playing. You use the rest of your finger. Now if we move to the A string on the 5th fret, so we're playing this note here, we can block all the strings above in the same way that we did before. Okay, I've got my finger nice and flat, but on this angle, finger nice and flat, blocking all those strings. But we now have the problem of this low E string. Okay, if I were to just play everything like this, I'm going to get that E string ringing as well. So the way we mute that is we actually use the tip of this first finger over here to just lightly be touching it. Right, and it'll make this kind of sound, especially if you do it with distortion. Right, it's muted though. Okay, and I don't have my finger way up like this. It's just enough to block the string. Okay, and you'll notice if I play all the strings now, strum my guitar, you can only hear that one note. If I go through each string individually, so blocking this low E with the top of my first finger, then this is the note I want on the A string, and then all the other strings are all blocked by using the rest of my first finger flattened out. So that's how you play the E string and the A string, and you can strum the whole guitar and block all the other strings. Now moving on to the D string. So again, we can block the G, B, and high E by just having our first finger nice and flat, and we can block the A string, like we did before, by using the tip of our first finger. So that's now blocked. However, we now have another problem. We have this low E string that is going to be ringing, and we obviously can't block that with the top of our first finger because it's too far away. This is where we bring in the picking hand. So what I do now is I use this part of my hand here. Okay, if I try show it to this camera here, which is difficult to coordinate, using this part of my hand here to rest on that low E string. So it's resting on that low E string there. I'll try get a better angle like that. And then that's going to take care of that low E string now. Okay, Okay, if I didn't have that hand rested, I would get that low E string ringing, but I rest just the edge of my hand, or that part of my palm I mentioned before over here. Sorry about that horrible guitar sound. And then it blocks that string. Cool. Now, when you do this, you want to be careful that you're not too far back on your bridge, because otherwise you nearly just get a palm muted sound. Right? It's still resonating. So you want to make sure you're quite far across. A good place to start is try pick near the fretboard, where the fretboard begins on your guitar, because if you palm mute there, it really kills the string. Okay? That's basically what it is. It's palm muting, but far across. So going through each string individually, the low E is blocked by my picking hand. The A string is blocked with the tip of my first finger. The D string is played, and then the G is blocked with the rest of my first finger. So is the B and the high E. Okay? Now the trick with this is getting used to putting that picking hand in the right spot to block that string. Might take a bit of getting used to, but just stick with it, it'll be fine. Now by using those 3 techniques to block our strings, this takes care of every other string we might want to play. We just have to adjust which strings we're blocking with each technique. So if I were to play the G, I would be blocking the D string with the tip of my first finger. I'm playing the G, and then the B and high E are blocked with the rest of my first finger. But now I have to block this low E and A with my picking hand. So I'm going to be resting it, on those 2 and nice and far across. Then I should be able to do this. So block, block with my right hand on the E and A, then the D string blocked with the tip of my first finger, then the G is played, and then the B and high E are blocked with the rest of my first finger. Now just a quick side note, the reason why we don't block the string above with our picking hand and we use the tip of our first finger is because it's hard to be as accurate with your picking hand and the blocking. So if you were to block the string right above the one you're playing with your picking hand, you might find it's easy to overshoot it and you end up actually blocking the string you want to play. So this way, if we just get used to blocking the string above with our first finger, we only have to worry about the 2 above that, and it gives us more room for error, basically. Cool. Now moving on to the B string, exact same ideas. So we're playing the 5th fret on the B string. Our first finger is blocking the string above with the tip of it, and then the rest of our first finger is blocking the high E. Now I have to block the bottom 3 strings, so the low E, A and D, with my right hand. I should be able to do this. Now on the high E, we're obviously just going to be blocking the B string with the tip of our first finger, and our right hand is going to have to take care of the rest. Right? Should be able to do that. So spend some time with it. You're not going to get it straight away, so just be patient. But eventually you should get to the point where you can play the 5th fret on every string and strum the whole guitar, only letting one note ring, like this. Back down. And you can do this on different frets. So once you get used to that, you might want to try it on the 7th fret. Just like that. And then you want to practice doing this with every finger. And the same rules apply, but it actually gets a bit easier, if anything. Because if I'm using my middle finger and playing the 5th fret, I can actually use my first finger back here to help mute. So I'm playing the 5th fret with my middle finger, but my first finger back here, I'll try to show it on the camera, is flat. So that's actually doing a lot of the blocking for me. Now if I move to the next string, I'm using the tip of my middle finger to block the string above, and I actually am using the tip of my first finger too. I have both those fingers on the string basically. And I'm using my first finger to block all the ones above. Now moving down, it's the exact same process, except you now have 2 fingers to block the strings. Right? You'll notice my first finger is always following with it. This is just good guitar technique, and it's something you should get used to. You shouldn't just have one finger down like this. It's not going to sound great. Then if I were to do this with my 3rd finger, same idea. I now have my first finger back there, and it's helping me block. Right? Using my 3rd finger. and then eventually your pinky. Right, same idea. I've just got that first finger and my other fingers helping block behind, but I'm following whatever string my pinky's playing too. So that's the first thing you want to practice, is just going through every string with every finger and seeing if you can mute all of them and strum the whole guitar. Now the next step is trying to apply this to a pentatonic scale. So let's take the B minor pentatonic scale, just pattern 1, and we'll start on the 7th fret to get the key of B minor. And you can practice going through that scale and strumming the whole guitar and hearing each note on its own individually, which is redundant to say, but there we go. So we got this note here, pinky. Now I bring in my right hand going to the D string. Then you can go backwards. So that's a great way to practice it. Then what I suggest you do is just take a really simple guitar phrase and take this muting technique and apply it to a couple of notes. Okay, you don't have to do it for every note in the phrase, but if there's a note that you want to make really pop, you can add this muting technique and this string break kind of sound to it. So take a simple phrase. Again, if we're in B minor, maybe I just play these 4 notes here. And I'm going to make the first note pop, so I'll do my string muting on that. And I'll make this last note here pop as well. So we got. Right, a bit more interesting than just. Right, allows you to get a bit more bite. Then another thing you can try is adding it to your bends. I love this sound. So let's take a generic pentatonic lick with some string bending. And on all those bent notes, or notes with vibrato, I'm going to use my muting technique. So string muting. So hopefully that gives you something to practice and think about in your lead guitar playing. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.